7 days of all access, any handicapper, every play, all for $77. Grab this special now as it expires Monday, Memorial Day at 11:59 p.m. Pacific Time. That includes MLB, the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs, soccer, golf, and even motor racing. Complete coverage with complete convenience as you receive an email immediately once your handicap releases a play, allowing you to get the best of the line. Just use coupon code FLAG77. Have an existing all access? We have you covered, as the 7 days will be added to the end of your current subscription. Best of all, this special is not limited to one per customer. Try as many cappers as you would like each day for only $11 per day.
What's up, guys? Welcome back right here to WagerTalk TV. I am Andrew McInnis, joined by my co-host Carmine Bianco, and we have Bryan Leonard joining us today in his usual Thursday spot. Just two games on the tap for tonight: Montreal and Toronto, Carolina and Nashville. Well, look, guys, two completely different series. I mean, one that's been very lopsided, one where one team can't even score, and the other series with Carolina and Nashville, well, it's getting a little bit interesting now. I mean, Nashville is making everything difficult for them. Carolina ends up getting the victory the last time out, but it wasn't easy for them. They had to do it in overtime. That series just keeps on staying close. Very, very tight series. Looking forward to these guys' thoughts on these games. And I'll bring in my co-host, Carmine Bianco. How was your night last night? And what do you have up for tonight, man?
Yes, Guy. Wow, we have a game 7, Andrew. We haven't seen this yet. We love game 7s. If you're a fan of wrestling and you see the Undertaker when he comes out of that coffin, that is our good friend Terry in chat and his Minnesota Wild. He's come out of the coffin. He is happy. They're going to game 7, and thankfully we have Bryan Leonard on the show because he will help us with that, trying to figure out where we're going with that game 7. Last night overall, on the card, it was a 1-2 day, but it was 3-2 NHL overall because a couple of my series bets for clients came in with the Islanders plus 131 winning that series in a game that just had a zillion goals in it, and the other series that got settled was Tampa Bay. So my 4 series bets for clients, Boston, Tampa Bay, and the Islanders are in the win column. And hopefully Carolina can win tonight and put another one in, and we can sweep our series bets and head into the next round.
That's awesome. A sweep with serious bets would be great, Carm. And congratulations on crashing those last night. Let's go to Bryan. Bryan, what's going on with you? I know you're going to give us some thoughts on tomorrow's game 7, but we're going to obviously talk about today's 2 games. How's life, man? How are things?
I'm a bit frustrated. You know how it is when you've got games that you don't use that win and games that you use that lose. I was on the NBA show yesterday. I liked all 3 NBA home teams. They all 3 easily cover, but I don't give any to my clients. I give the 2 hockey games to my clients, and I lose them both. So a frustrating night for myself, but it's another day, and hopefully we can get some winners today.
Bryan, I find that exact thing over the course of the playoffs as well. And that's why I'm doing a lot of tweeting as far as in-game action. Yesterday, I'm very low volume in the NBA in general. And yesterday, I end up hopping on the Knicks in regulation at plus 400, feeling great about it. But as I watch the game, wish I could have given that out to clients. Then I'm watching the Jazz game. I feel out the first quarter. I said, no way. This Jazz team looks dialed in. Grab them minus 9.5 in game. So I didn't make any prior bets, pre-game bets to start those 2 games. But I come out 2-0, and you just think to yourself, man, I wish I just committed and took one of these at least before the game started. It would have been nice to have some pregame bets. And, as far as a little segue goes into our first game up here with the Montreal Canadiens and the Toronto Maple Leafs, this is clearly our dump or chase segment with the Leafs minus 220, Canadiens plus 180. I'll tell you, Bryan, the thing I've been regretting with this series is mentioning the under on this show several times and not pulling the trigger. And I thought we might see some goals in the last game, but frankly, you could put a soccer net behind Jack Campbell right now, and the Canadiens probably wouldn't put the puck in the net. That's how bad things are right now for the Montreal Canadiens scoring-wise. They contested, they've played some competitive hockey, but you can't win games without scoring goals. You can't win every game if you score just 2 goals, or obviously if you score 0 goals. So I'm going to throw it to Carm first for his thoughts. He predicted after game 3 that he thought it'd be great value to go on the Maple Leafs in 5. I thought it was a great price. He was doing the math on Twitter for us, and I posted that funny GIF of the guy looking at all the numbers and trying to figure it all out. But Carm, you're here. We're where you predicted they will be. The Habs, the quotes, everything's promising, but hey, if you can't score, nothing can really change. I mean, the only thing I can say is they're playing good defensively. That's it. they're keeping the Leafs to a couple goals, but you can't score goals.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, and that series bet was, after the Leafs even the series at 1, and we're heading back to Montreal. I just thought, instead of laying that insane amount of juice on the Leafs, if you're going to take the Leafs to win game 3, you should probably take the Leafs to win the series 4-1 at plus 350. I thought those were great odds. And I just thought the Leafs were going to get better as the series wore on, and they seem to be doing that. They really should take care of business tonight, I would think. Probably, on the ice this morning for the Leafs, he's not going to be in the lineup, but this is probably going to send some morale through that dressing room. Not that they really need it. Is John Tavares on the ice this morning wearing the gray shirt, doing circles around the ice. Great to see the guy back after what, that unfortunate injury that happened to him, which was completely accidental. But he's on the ice. Foligno was on the ice as well, too. They're hopefully going to get some bodies back moving forward for those Leaf fans like Prez and everyone else that might be in chat who are Leafs fans. But I have to think that the Leafs see it out tonight and the series, get their players some rest before that next round starts against Winnipeg, which is going to be a pretty good series if that is in fact what it is. We'll see. Montreal's not going to lay over and die. They're just not going to do it. They are still going to come out, try and give the Leafs a hard time. They're going to push the Leafs. We're going to see how the game goes. You're spot on, Andrew, with the unders. It's been a very good series for unders thus far. Just that 5-1 game by Toronto on that Saturday night. But other than that, 4-0, 2-1, and 2-1 were the other score lines. And even though it's an elimination game, I would tend to agree that we probably see an under here tonight in this game. So it's Leafs for me tonight and the under.
It's hard to argue that. It's hard to argue an under again. And I think that if the Habs go down swinging, which I think they will, it won't be with surprising us and putting up 4 goals. It'll be just with another, great effort, throwing everything they can defensively. But it's been hard for them right now to turn all their defensive efforts into offense. There is one thing I want to say about the Toronto Maple Leafs, because everybody out there that watches seems to think that I just talk bad about them all the time. But on this show, all season long, you can ask Carm, I've actually been very complimentary of this team. One thing I want to say about them is that in years past, it's been very reliant on guys like Matthews, Marner, Tavares. And I have said on this show that I worry about the success of this team if those couple guys aren't scoring. And now to see a guy in Alex Galchenyuk, who actually bounced around the league a little bit after being traded away from the Canadiens, and Alex Kerfoot as well. These guys, like even Zach Hyman, these guys that aren't filling the net with pucks, but are contributing in different ways, that play 200-foot hockey, those guys are making a difference. So I think for everybody out there that's, excited about what the Leafs are doing, I would be excited about Jason Spezza scoring a goal or Alex Galchenyuk setting up a play. Matthews is always going to be great. Marner is going to always show up every night. But having the supporting cast show up, it's not like basketball where 2 guys can carry a team. And right now, the Leafs are getting a full effort from their entire team. So I definitely have to give them credit for that. Brian, let's go to you. Your thoughts here on this series. It's a tricky situation because you kind of look at the last couple of games, and if you're the Maple Leafs, you might come in here thinking you already have it in the bag.
That's always a possibility, and they did that in the first game, and it came back to bite them. You would hope they've learned their lesson at this point, but yeah, there's no way I could play Montreal in this situation. I didn't think Montreal was a playoff type of team. So at the time I thought there was only two good teams in this division, one of them being Edmonton. And when you're wrong, you might as well be really wrong, because I used Edmonton game 1, Edmonton game 2, Edmonton game 3, had them in the series. And even though I think they outplayed the opposition, they never won. And you talked about Toronto being able to rely on players that aren't their superstars. They weren't able to do that with Edmonton. And that's something that I didn't take into account. And I paid for it, and my clients paid for it. And I feel terrible for that. But hopefully we got plenty of time to make up for that. But yeah, it's Toronto or nothing for me here. Don't want any part of Montreal, but I'm priced out of this game. I really don't have much an opinion on it, but it wouldn't surprise me if Toronto closes it out here.
I saw a pretty funny tweet, guys, from Paul Bizanet, Biz Nasty. He's on the Spit and Chicklets crew and stuff like that, and he's everybody knows him as being a player, of course, and a analyst with Arizona Coyotes. And I couldn't help but laugh at this tweet. He pretty much said, "Why don't we just put Montreal out there on the power play for the entire third period? And if they don't score a goal or win the game, then we just cancel the rest of the series." And I couldn't help but laugh, because even though that was about my favorite team, it was kind of funny, because they haven't, any chances they've had on the power play, they haven't done anything. It's almost given the Leafs more life when the Montreal Canadiens have been on the power play. So I thought that was pretty funny. He pretty much just said, like, hey, let's put 4 guys out there in the third for the Leafs, 5 out there for the Habs. And if the Habs don't even score a goal, we'll just call it a wrap. Curious to see, though. I mean, one thing to mention, a lot of these guys in the Canadiens, they're playing for jobs. They're playing for spots on certain lines next year. They're playing for positions. So curious to see. That's why I agree with Carmine on the under, because I feel like the effort's going to be there defensively. They just can't really figure it out scoring wise right now. Let's jump into Carolina and Nashville. This series has been super interesting. This series has not been as one-sided as I predicted it to be. I'm holding a ticket with the Carolina Hurricanes to win the series. It's a 5% ticket. And I also have a small wager on Carolina minus 1.5 games in this series. And Brian, I'm going to go to you first in this one, and I want to kind of reference what we saw with Edmonton and Winnipeg, because, I think Winnipeg is a playoff team. They have depth and they have size, but we know the skill of the Edmonton Oilers. I like the Oilers in a few games, just like yourself. And when you look at this Nashville Predators team, you're kind of seeing, a couple guys like Philip Forsberg and the top players like Ryan Johansson, but the guys down the lineup are names that I barely ever talk about, or people have never really, given the time of day to mention on a sports show. But it turns out in the playoffs, it doesn't really matter. You can look at the stats and say, this team had 50 shots, this team had 20, but this team won. And the fact that we saw another overtime between these two teams kind of worries me with some of the prices we're getting with the Carolina Hurricanes. Having said all of that, I'm sure you would agree with me. This Hurricanes team has been the better team during the series, and I think they'll outlast the Nashville Predators here and take the game tonight. And I usually would say that it'd be low-scoring fashion, but I feel like Nashville won't go down without a fight. Carolina's going to be on full pressure mode. I'm going to go over 5.5 and lean towards the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah, Carolina's the one team I still have live to win a series. I'm 0-2 with Carolina. I had Washington as a nice underdog, and that one fell apart for me. So haven't done nearly as well in the futures as you guys have, especially Carmine. But yeah, Carolina is the team. They're the better team. Nashville was a team, as we all talked about earlier in the season. They just didn't play any defense early on. But once they turned on the defense, they became a pretty good team and a good moneymaker, because a lot of people were continuing to use the full season stats on Nashville. So when it came into the playoffs, they were one of the hotter teams coming into the playoffs. So it doesn't surprise me that Carolina's had this much trouble with them, because Nashville is playing good, much better than they did earlier in the season. But I expect Carolina to win this tonight. But I don't want to lay the number. The lines come down slightly. We're seeing 140s. It was open 145. Nashville at home. Teams are at home. They're going to give their full effort. That may be the last time playing in front of your home fans. So Nashville's going to give everything they've got, but as you mentioned, Carolina has the more talent on this team, more experience. I prefer Carolina, but I can't lay this number.
Carm, what are your thoughts, man? You and I are both pretty heavy in on this series. We're pot committed, as some might say in the poker world. I think that Carolina has been the better team. You cashed a goal scoring ticket for us on this show with Jordan Staal. Give us your thoughts here on this game tonight. Are they going to close things out?
I hope so, but I also thought Vegas was going to close it out last night. So it's what we do. We think one way, and sometimes it goes the other. It's just this NHL playoff season has been absolutely fantastic and at times unpredictable. But listen, give Nashville all the credit. I thought this series would be over in 5 games max. It's now 6 games that we're heading on, and while I think they get it done tonight, they've played extremely well at home. They've gotten the games to overtime. Andrew, both games they've gotten them to overtime. The fans there have done their part in making in sort of giving that team that little bit of go. But Carolina was a better team in both OTs. Got a ton of pucks to the net. They just couldn't get a goal. So at the end of the day, that means nothing because they came away with an L. So it's game 6 now. They want to get it done tonight. They don't want to head back home. And you also want to end the series, get that rest, because you have Tampa Bay who ended their series. Tampa Bay would love nothing other than this going 7 games. I don't think it will. I hope it doesn't. Carolina, for me, I think we're going to see goals though. I think that might be the better option here. I think we're going to see some goals similar to what we saw in that game 4. And one of my goal scoring props I'm going to talk about, or a goal scoring prop at the end of the show, will be in it. To the guys in the chat, just a couple things. Follow our Puck Time WT Twitter account. I'll announce the winners of the 3 shirts. I'm seeing some of the comments in the chat. I'm going to take some of the names. I'll put them there. I'll send you guys some t-shirts. Hopefully Carolina gets this done, because I've got some monster future bets and parlays for the series, and that money helps me buy these retro jerseys and t-shirts that we're giving away and stuff. Even though Andrew is very gracious and trying to send me money, I just keep refusing it. So with that said, let's go with Carolina in the over tonight.
Let's get it done with Carolina. I want to say a cheers to Marco D'Angelo for giving me this mug. I never really bring it out on the show, but happy to have this as my wager talk. It's, I'm not too superstitious, but I'm a little bit stitious, as some people might get that joke. I like to have certain things going on while I'm doing shows, while I'm doing podcasts, and this mug is one of them. If I'm doing anything to do with Wager Talk, if it's a show, if it's a podcast, if I'm doing an article, I've got my my Wager Talk mug with me. So thanks a lot to Marco for that mug. I appreciate him for giving that to me. Yeah, Carm, you and I both have the Hurricanes to win this series, so we'll both be cheering them on, and hopefully that helps towards some of these jerseys. I want to throw something at both of you guys, but Carm, you're a soccer guy, so I want to throw it to you. Of course, you guys all know Carm out there, #1 soccer guy at the website. The term double chance is a expression we hear all the time in soccer. And I actually talked with a few people that I trust quite a bit, NHL bettors last night, and take away the price just for a second and just don't imagine that it's in the 200s. Is it something that you'd be interested in looking at for tonight, seeing as how many overtime games we've seen? Because I'll tell you what, after what I've seen this year during the playoffs, going into next year's playoffs, I will not be shy to give out 1%, 2% plays on the draw. We're seeing plus 320 tonight with the home tie away on the draw, and the double chance is minus 260 for the Carolina Hurricanes. So if this game went into, like, let's say 2 extra overtimes or 3 extra overtimes, you win your bet the second this game goes into overtime. Maybe Carolina or draw at minus 260. Carm, I know you bet these type of things in soccer. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's not a bad option in a series that is tight checking. It's almost the reverse of, let's say, me saying take Carolina in regulation time. You're actually now saying take Carolina not to lose in regulation time. and you're going to cash that ticket. You obviously have to lay vig with it, but if you're certain that that they'll win the game, or the game is going to get to overtime, what happens in overtime has no bearing on that ticket. You've cashed it. So it does come up, in European football a lot. The play I normally don't give my clients those type of plays, in the sense of in soccer the lines are much higher for double chance. They're in the 400s and 500s, and there's some guy in Vegas that does that and hands out minus 500 lines. I'm not going to mention his name because it doesn't need to be mentioned here, but you all know who I'm talking about. And no, it's not anybody at WagerTalk. But with that said, Andrew, it's not a bad thing. This Nashville team is doing an absolutely great job at limiting how Carolina gets into their offensive zone. Sticks on the pucks, they're pressuring guys. So when Carolina doesn't get a lot of zone time or offensive zone time, it makes it very difficult for them to get goals. They just don't come on end-to-end rushes. This isn't Connor McDavid starting behind his own net and weaving through 8 guys to get to the goal. That doesn't happen in this series, and that's why we're seeing overtime games. It's going to be a good one tonight. It honestly is going to be a good game. I do not see this being a lopsided type of game. We haven't seen it really in the series, other than maybe that 5-2 game. They've all been tight. I'm hoping for a good one tonight, and I'm hoping that the Canes get it done.
Brian, do you have any thoughts on that? Have you bet any draws this postseason, or will you be looking to do it moving forward? I used to think it was kind of I don't want to, slander it at all, but I used to kind of look down on that bet because I was like, why would I want to cheer for a game to go to overtime? But as far as the playoffs go, it's not a rarity. It's not something that we're seeing, and as shocking results at plus 320 for tonight. It's not a bad price.
Yeah, I'm going to plead the fifth. I've never really looked at it. I don't follow soccer. I don't even know what you guys are talking about for the most part because I don't do that. But as for teams going into overtime, yeah, I've got definite opinions on that. And we'll talk about that when I get to my best bet, that it may have some value. But other than that, I've got nothing else to add.
Andrew, I'll just jump in.
Okay.
Real quick if I can, because I get it that Brian doesn't follow it, but just to explain it real quickly, essentially what a double result is if let's say you take Carolina. If Carolina is ahead or tied after 60 minutes, that's what the double chance is. Your ticket is a winning ticket. So if they win the game in 60 minutes, regulation time, or if they're tied heading to overtime, your bet is official and a winner, but you're paying big on it.
So even if it's 1-1 going into overtime, Brian, you win. It's pretty much betting on it to be, yeah.
I would think that would be something, if you're playing the underdog, would be some value, because normally the favorite, at least in my mind, wins in overtime because your favorite's got the better skill players. But that would be a regular season situation, not the playoffs, because obviously your overtime and your shootouts are different from that. So there's something maybe I can keep in mind for next regular season.
Mm-hmm. Like minus 140 for Nashville. That's what it is for tonight, guys. Minus 140 for Nashville, and they win that bet even if they go into overtime, just tied or lose in overtime. You still win your wager.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. To your point, Brian, if you're taking dogs during, like, especially during the regular season, dogs who are like plus 170, plus 180, you're going to get close to even money, minus 110 on that double chance result, where you no longer have to worry about the skills competition that has been regular season overtime.
All right, guys, I've cut the prop segment for today. I'll be back on it tomorrow. Hit a small little dry spell with it, but luckily Carmine stepped up and in and cashed a few for me. I'll be back tomorrow for the big game tomorrow. I have a few I'm looking at already, but I do have one for my best bet, but I'm going to throw it over to Carmine for his power play of the night and what he has up for grabs at WagerTalk.com. Don't forget, guys, also, we have the Champions League final this Saturday. Carmine has a great package up there, including props and some great future bets leading up to things. So don't miss out on that. Check that out. I believe it's only for $1. Carm?
Yeah, I will not be on tomorrow, guys. It'll be Andrew at the helm of the ship. I need to take care of some business. But Andrew's in charge tomorrow. We hope to see. There's one game tomorrow, and we don't know what's going on as far as the weekend games. But hopefully, Koken will join Andrew tomorrow. Maybe the Prez, if he can get off of his Leafs ship or whatever he's on. With that said, two plays up in NHL tonight. Obviously, the Leafs game, obviously, the Nashville game. Champions League card, Andrew mentioned it. You can get that. I do it every year. The Champions League final, you get my play on the game and a ton of prop bets. We hit a bunch of them yesterday in the final of the Europa League, including the actual play, which was the under 2.5. You get it for $1. It's a customer appreciation thing. And there's going to be information on the Euros coming up. I have 2 autographed Cristiano Ronaldo framed jerseys, a Juventus one and Man United 2005-2006 one that I won in an auction for a children's cancer charity fundraiser. I'm giving those away to my clients. There'll be details on that coming next week. My prop for this show is going to be Vincent Trocheck, plus 240 to score tonight. He's got a couple goals so far, 17 during the regular season, 2 in this series. But this guy has to step up. Carolina has to step up. They have to get some secondary scoring from that second and third line. He leads that second line. Let's hope he can get a goal tonight at plus 240 for us on the way to a Canes victory.
It's a great price there at plus 240 to score a goal for Carmine Bianco. Brian, we've a little bit want to prolong the show or anything, but I've pretty much asked everybody that lives in Vegas the same question. So before we get into the business and the real stuff here, I got to ask you, I'm looking at flights to Vegas. I'm pretty excited. I booked my vaccine appointment, so I'm going to be able to travel again soon. Where are we going to dinner, Brian? I'll be calling you up. I'll be finding you on Slack. We'll chat. Where's your spot? What do you like to eat?
I'm a little different than the other guys. I'm not somebody who likes to spend a lot of money on food. So I'm usually the guy that sets out the expensive restaurants, because even though a lot of times WagerTalk, who is very generous, will pick up the tabs, I don't want somebody paying for me to order something that's overpriced. So I always joke, I go, can I just have the cash equivalent? And I'm very happy with that. So I'm not the guy you're going to talk to about the food. You talk to Marco. Marco's the guy that Chris Sanook, also Vegas Chris, is 2 guys that go to the fine dining establishment. So they're the ones you want to talk to. But while I'm speaking, we'll talk about my best bet. And as you could tell, I don't really care for either one of these games today. So I'm going to take a look at tomorrow's game between Minnesota and Vegas. And like Carmine, I had Vegas yesterday. I thought that was the game that Vegas would have to have. And if you listen to the Minnesota announcers, it was interesting. And I agree. Even though Minnesota had their backs against the wall, they said all the pressure in that game was on Vegas. Vegas was the team who was supposed to win. They were one of the top teams in the league. They were supposed to take care of them last night. And they didn't do it, which puts even more pressure on Vegas in this last game. And if you followed the Golden Knights, and I'm a season ticket holder the entire time, they've yet to clinch a series in 4 years at home. They do have a nice home advantage, but they have not performed well in these games. I was there when Washington beat them in the championship in the Stanley Cup a few years ago in their inaugural season. They have not played well in these games. And if you look at their games overall the last 4 years when they faced a team and it was a chance to put them away, they haven't done it well anywhere. So I do have major concerns about Vegas. We talked about this earlier. Vegas is more of one of those teams that put a lot of shots on goal. They shoot deep and they try to get the rebounds. They struggled against Minnesota in that regard all season long. There was one game in the series in which, I think it was game 2, where they changed it up and they decided they were going to have less shots, but more quality shots. And it surprised Minnesota. And they won that game. And that's the best game Vegas has looked in this series. Well, last night they tried to do it again. If you look at these shots on goal, I think Vegas had 5 in the first period. Normally they have 15, 20. It's a team that changed it up yesterday And Minnesota already saw it. Minnesota knew how to deal with it. And I have concerns about the coaching on this Vegas team. They just, as you mentioned, they've got so much more talent, and they can't get good looks at the goals. So, I played Minnesota like plus 190 at the beginning of the series. So I'm in pretty good shape there. But even at the plus 145, 150 tomorrow, I think is value. I just don't trust Vegas's offense at this point. And the mistakes that they made in goal, I mean, they should have put Lerner in one of these games, especially after Fleury gave up 3 goals in the first period in that one game. That was the game. You take him out. You let this guy get in there and get a little experience in the playoffs. Now they've seen Fleury 2 games in a row. They scored 3 goals. They're no longer intimidated by Fleury. Mm-hmm. And so, unfortunately, as a season ticket holder and lover of the Knights, I don't think they're going to win tomorrow. So I'll take Minnesota.
And from a betting standpoint, it's really hard to argue with the odds you're being given. So, Brian, season ticket holder to the Vegas Golden Knights, obviously a fan, but looking in the wild direction. Vegas 2-8, last 10 elimination games. Hasn't fared well for them. If they're not beating teams by several games in these series, doesn't really look too good for them. 2-8, last 10 elimination games for them. I actually am going to go to a prop for my best bet, but that's my only prop I'm really looking at so far on the day, unless I find some more I like. And it's Andrei Svechnikov over 2.5 shots. And guys, this is a little more pricey than I like to go with props. Usually it's minus 140. But I always find, guys, you can catch somebody off, one bad game, one off game. And you look at it, he had 0 shots in the last game. Prior to that, he had 6. Prior to that, he had 6 again. The second game of this series, the guy had 8 shots. I don't give out these props too often because a lot of books don't offer it, but some do. If you guys can find a, shot prop or a save prop on UC Saros over on saves, I would take that. Carolina is going to throw everything they can. Sometimes we call it the kitchen sink style of hockey, throwing everything you can at the goalie. And Svechnikov to get 3 shots, when a guy has gotten double that multiple times, you can sign me up. I have some afternoon action up, guys. 4% MLB best bet. The run is now 45-20. Last 65 MLB plays. Power plays, you can find them on the screen. Brian with the wild plus 145. That game is tomorrow. Carmine Trocheck to score a goal at plus 240. And I have Svechnikov over 2.5 shots, minus 140. Always happy to have Brian on the show. Of course, good to see Carmine as usual. And we'll miss him tomorrow, but I hope everything gets taken care of and we'll see him back on Monday. On behalf of both Brian and Carmine, best of luck tonight, guys. And we'll see you tomorrow.